softest wool. And so a lot of breeds have been created by combining merinos with something else. And so why would you want to change that softer wool? Well, one disadvantage to merino wool is it is relatively short compared to other breeds. And so the Lincoln breed, which is a long, curly, long wool breed from England, was combined with the merinos to create these corridors. And so adding in that Lincoln wool is going to give a little extra length to the merino, but it's still soft, not as soft as a merino, but it's still fairly soft. So that was kind of the purpose of the breed. We have some of them here in America, but they're very popular in places like the Falkland Islands off the coast of Argentina, and they're popular in Tasmania off the coast of Australia. They're a very functional breed. They have valuable wool, but they're also a good meat sheep. So, and I would say the other advantage to crossing the Lincoln in with the merino is you're going to have a little bit bigger sheep that's more dual purpose. They can be sold for meat or wool. They're always white. They get their black nose from the Lincolns, and so these three in here are young. They were just born this year, back in the winter. So it was their first shearing. Now the one we have left to shear has actually been trimmed before because she's gone to the shows. So she was down here at the Big E, over a month ago for the show, and I think she was the champion, right? Right, Chris?
Oh,
yeah,
right.
she was the champion. She may have been actually. The Cordell show it was a lamb, so it could be her. So when we bring them into the show, we'll use that trimming stand that I talked about in the beginning because to groom them. So what they do to prepare sheep for the show, they want them to look completely smooth and pretty and have a certain shape to them. And that process can take hours. Chris's daughter is very good at it with these Cordels, and she can polish them up and make them look perfect. But what I'm showing you today is not that. We don't care if there's a little wool left on them, if they don't look perfect after they're shorn. The process is to harvest that wool. And so we want to try to go over every spot just once and not have little tiny pieces in the wool. And the goal of this is to be safe for the shearer and the sheep, but also the efficiency that you can shear the sheep. So the only really damaging thing to the sheep's health potentially during shearing is a little bit of stress involved. And sheep don't do well with stress. So we want to be as gentle as possible. And we want to limit their stress as much as possible. So the way I hold them, the way I move them is all going back to reducing that stress. And the quicker it's done, the less time they were under stress. So people will say, well, do they enjoy it? And I honestly can say most times they tolerate it, but I wouldn't say they enjoy it. They might enjoy it about as much as kids going to the dentist. So a lot of kids don't enjoy the dentist, maybe some do. But we know that it's good for the kid. It's good to keep your teeth clean. So just like that, we know that what we're doing for the sheep is good for them. It's beneficial to their health, because if we didn't shear them, that wool will just keep growing and growing and growing, and to the point where it'd be super uncomfortable. And one of the risks of not shearing a sheep is that if there's manure around the tail, that can attract flies, and that's a very dangerous situation for the sheep. So efficiency, comfort, and the benefit the sheep has in the long term for their overall health. So I'll take this last sheep out here. So she would run away from me, but usually once you get your hands on them, they realize, okay, I guess we have to do this. Oh, to answer that question, this is 2446. So I'm guessing the 24 was because she was born in 24. So in a few years, if you say, that would at least give you a clue of what year she was born. So this is 46. So the very first thing I do after I pull the sheep out is I have to sit them down onto their rump. This process is designed so that one person can do the shearing without any assistance. And so we need to sit the sheep down to immobilize them off their feet. So to do that, it's actually very easy. I'm just going to stand next to them right here, put my left hand out on their chin. If she's wiggling her head around, I can actually stick my thumb right there in her mouth because there's no teeth right there. So sheep only have teeth in the front on the bottom, and none on the top. And then they have molars top and bottom, but there's a gap there where there's no teeth, so I can hold on to it with just 2 fingers if I need to. So with my hand firmly on her chin, my right hand on her hip, I'm just going to turn that head and make her lose her balance, and she's just going to fall right over. So you see as I move and turn, like I just did there, turning her head, every way that I move and bend them are ways that their body naturally bends, so I'm not doing anything that's going to be uncomfortable or hurt them in any way. So once I'm sitting down, I take a hold of this front leg, of the wool right here on the chest, and just pull them right back into place. So when I was talking about setups and the order and the flow of things, the reason we want them to come from that direction is because it's easier for me to pull them back than it would be to push them forward. And I'll take this front leg and just tuck it behind my right leg, and that way I can control the sheep with just my feet and my leg. So you'll see all 4 of my limbs have a specific job on every spot, so I'm using my entire body. People notice, oh, it must be back breaking because I'm bent the whole time, but actually on bigger sheep like this, when they're leaning into my legs, it's actually harder on my legs than it is on my back. But you don't need to be super strong to shear sheep because there's never any heavy lifting. It's just bending and twisting, and so it takes more endurance than it does strength. So because they have woolly legs, I'll take the wool off this front leg first. And then the first position that we're starting out here, we always start with the belly. So the belly wool is generally shorter and dirtier, and so we take that off first so it doesn't contaminate the rest of the fleece. So we'll start here on the front leg. And then here on the belly. So this belly wool is really short because when they trimmed her for the show, they would have sheared this belly. It's kind of hard to get underneath this really short wool. And you notice how much I use my left hand. Like I said, the left hand works just as hard as the right hand. I'm always stretching the skin and maybe moving a leg. So there's the belly wool. We'll slide that aside and then start it on the back legs. Now, a lot of sheep won't have any wool here on the lower part of their legs, so that saves a few extra steps. Here I can just straighten that leg by pushing down on her knee. And so I can make one nice long pass on the inside of the legs. And then you notice I'll move my feet, so now that I'm bending straight over and not twisting my back to bend. So if they still had their tail, I would shear the tail now. But with breeds that grow wool and have a long tail, we dock those tails when they're born to keep them clean. And I know I'm done in this position when I've gone at least one full comb width over the backbone. And that way they're not laying on that wool on the last side that still needs to be sheared. So now I'll sit her up and step between her back legs. Now, so I told you they're half merino, and merinos will have a big wrinkle right down the center of their neck. So these Cordales might occasionally have a little wrinkle there too. So you want to be careful how you shear around it. So as I'm doing this first shoulder, every time I make a blow, I'm going to start dragging my right foot back So I'm moving her this way. So by the time I finish the front leg, her head will be way up here. So now she's laying down in the long blow position. And it's called the long blow position because this next blow I make is the longest one in the whole pattern, all the way up the back of the neck. And once again in this position, I want to make sure I get beyond the backbone. It's kind of hard to find on fatter sheep, and it's quite easy to find on the thinner sheep, but I want to make sure I'm just beyond the backbone. So as I finish up this side of her face, and I start on the back side of the neck, I'll let the head kind of start to roll right back between my legs. And I'm not putting any pressure on her neck. I'm holding her up by the back of my left leg and her front leg. Well, this must be the leader. They said, where did our leader go? Yeah, so if there was only one in there, though, it would be a lot worse. She probably would have jumped out by now and run halfway across the fairgrounds. But yeah, they're just, the social structure changed when I took one out. I think it's the only reason. So once I've gotten started on this last front leg, now I can swing my left leg over, and she's just going to lean right into me. So the reason I put that head behind me is now this whole last side is all stretched out. We want nice tight skin. If the head were up in front of me, you'd have wrinkles right there. So now we're on to the last side. Very cooperative. One of the sheep that's in the pen behind me was not this cooperative. And you never know until you get going. And that's it. Thank you. What do we do for the winter? So I would say between now and April, any sheep I shear will have at least have access to a barn. And when they're in the barn, they don't need a full fleece to stay warm. And it'll grow back, and in a couple weeks, she'll be well adjusted to the new haircut, and probably even less than that, actually, probably about a week from now. And I find with my sheep that they can come in and out of the barn, and I shear them around Thanksgiving time. And when they get wet, they get snowed on, they dry so much faster in a short fleece. So if they have half an inch of wool, that's plenty to stay warm. And then if they get snowed on, they can just shake and the snow's gone. Where if they had a full fleece, that snow might sit on their back for a while and like being in the cooler. So she might have been more cooperative just because she's been worked with more than the other sheep because she's gone to the shows. So she's a little more comfortable with humans, but you never know. She could also be the worst one next time. Just a guess. Any other? Yeah.
How do you collect all the wool?
Well, I just shear it, and then you have to collect it. So, no, that is a good question, though. So, right after shearing, the next process would be called skirting, which is when we sort the fleece into the better parts and the worst parts. So, if it were a little bit longer, it would all stay together, and there's a way to pick it up and kind of throw it on a table. I can't really put it back on her, but there is a certain way to pick it up, and then And then you can easily see the dirty parts from the clean parts to sort it out. And then before the next sheep is on the board, we want to take away the good wool, sweep away any of those little bits that didn't stay with the fleece, and then the next one's up. So this breed would grow probably quarter inch a month. Okay. Yep, and that'll change a lot from breed to breed. There's some breeds that will grow an entire inch a month. But once a year shearing would be enough for them as far as their own health. A farmer might choose to do it more often if they want a certain length of wool or just other management reasons. Yeah, you fit more sheep in the barn when they're shorn. You figure when they're standing around the feeder, if they've got 3 inches on each side, you're losing 6 inches of feeder space for every sheep. So these lines that are left, you can kind of see my stroke patterns. I don't want to go back and cut those off and make second cuts. And just like a bad haircut, in a couple weeks you won't see those anyway. So the difference between a smooth shearing job and a rough shearing job is only 2 weeks. Does anybody want to feel the sheep? If you see this yellow color on their back, that's the lanolin. Yeah, come on.
I want to go touch it. Don't stand right behind.
So you'll see your hands get kind of shiny, and that's from the grease that's in their skin. Well, there is still wool on her. She's not shorn right down to the skin. And that's why we call it shearing, not